wants to, so he'll say something and then we'll respond.
Jaya Ganesha, Jaya Ganesha, Jaya Ganesha, Pariman, Shri Ganesha, Shri Ganesha, Shri Ganesha, Rakshamam. Jaya Ganesha, Jaya Ganesha, Jaya Ganesha, Pariman, Shri Ganesha, Shri Ganesha, page 27. page 33.
format of the satsangs that we're doing is the same as the International Shivananda Satsangs, so they're all over the world. The closest one's in Grass Valley, California, and that's where I go down and serve a lot, and Sahadev has been there, Majority Devi's been there. A lot of people been there, but I go quite often. So there is a contribution, you know, it's totally optional, but all that money will go to the ashram. And then I'll be down there from January. We'll have a satsang here the first Sunday in January again, but then I'll be going down the 6th to the 16th, and they're starting a new yoga health educator training group, but also I'm going to be teaching from stress to strength. You know, just a series of workshops. But you can go down there anytime for just a yoga vacation. I mean, we live in a beautiful place, so needing a retreat is kind of interesting, but still, sometimes just getting away from your regular routine and daily home. So you can go for any amount you want, and there's some information on it up there. And so I would love to see some of you down there when I'm there in January. So maybe we could do a little retreat. now I'm tickled. Sadev's going to do the talk. We take turns each month. So he's going to do one very appropriate for the season, I thought, for Christmas coming up. Sahadev, take
Who saw the subject? Did you all see the subject for today?
No.
Not much. Okay. It's well, in the last couple of years, I think it started a couple of years ago, and I bought an elliptical machine for home, you know, exercise, and I needed something to keep my mind occupied so I can not feel like it's taking forever. So I started listening. I think I might have started with that. See, Vedanta is kind of too slow going. You can't just listen to somebody reading it like that. It's very, very, you know, kind of thick, and you got to think about it. But there's a book called Practice of the Presence of God by Brother Lawrence. It's actually a compilation of his letters and remembering people that he spoke to a lot, wrote what he told them. And has anybody heard of that book? Yeah? No? It's a really beautiful, practical book. He was a lay monk, so he worked in the kitchen. He wasn't like a monastic who was going to study the scriptures and teach or anything like that, but he was really just tuned into God, and it's such an inspiring book that I found I could listen to that while I'm, you know. And so then I started seeing on YouTube what else you can listen to, right? So there's other people that have been reading books, inspirational books, and I found my interest in related types of books by Christian mystics. So mysticism became part of my regular life, and I started buying books and reading them on my own, and even when I wasn't exercising, etc. And really fell in love with it. And so then I started to notice how much parallel there is between Vedanta and the Christian mysticism, because I go and work in Pennsylvania 4.5 months per year, and they have all Vedanta classes there. Vedanta classes, and I'm the audio video guy for all those live streaming classes. And so I was just connecting the dots and seeing how I could get inspiration from both of them, but I was feeling a kind of a richness in the Christian tradition. So the mystics, they don't talk a lot about Jesus, so you won't be hearing Jesus' name much, but you'll be hearing about going within and finding God, you know, in your heart when we get to that part. So today I'm going to bring out some of the parallels or, you know, commonalities between those two. Vastly different from different places, like paths, the spiritual life, and it's because Shivananda Satsang especially, and because Shivananda is my primary teacher, he was author of over 250 books on spiritual life. You ever heard of anybody writing 250 books? And they're just like a flow of, you know, clear, short sentences. He wrote in English. You can understand everything. Is just like so bold and clear. And I just love it. He passed on in 1963. I never got to meet him, but nonetheless, he feels like my primary guru. And so he has one of his books is called Vedanta, and it's which is subtitled Jnana Yoga, because that's another name for Jnana Yoga and Vedanta, kind of parallel or alternate names for that tradition or that path. So Shivananda, He's widely accepted as a self-realized master, and that he wrote from direct experience. So you just can feel it in his writing, and from his just knowledge of the scriptures and just the teachings. So he actually gave a definition of Vedanta. He said it's the science of the reality. Just right at the beginning of his book on Vedanta, the science of the reality is what he called it. It teaches unity of life or oneness of consciousness, and so it's a really high teaching that can become very intellectual. You can intellectually, okay, all is one. We've heard it. All is one. Okay, fine. So what? So what? How does that help me in my life, kind of thing? And how does it help with my struggles or with my happiness? And so this is where the rubber meets the road, in my opinion. It should definitely get to the rubber meets the road somewhere along the way. So I just, in a nutshell, you're going to be hearing just a nutshell version of everything, but Vedanta philosophy, and then Vedanta practice, and then some like preparations for this type of spiritual path. And so I'm just going to read a little bit from his book, that human nature is to strive for happiness, but it is always fleeting. Vedanta teaches that all bliss resides in the Atman, our true self. That's the capital S they use for true self, because there's like the true self, and then there's the ego self. So you have a little small s, a big s. And so, yeah, it's true. We're all seeking happiness. Anything we do, we're basically trying to find happiness. Even if it's helping someone else, we get happy by helping that person. It's like that. And the thing is that we get that happiness, and then it kind of dissipates, and then we're trying to get happiness again, sometimes, somehow. And he wrote, Vedanta teaches that the bliss resides in the Atman, in our true self, and that when a desire is gratified, the mind moves toward the Atman and rests in the Atman for a short time. So that's like you get the success or fulfillment or the object, and then what happens? What are you feeling? It's just like a stillness. There's like you don't have this craving or this pushing or this ambition is not there anymore. It's just like an exhale, It's like, wow, wonderful. So what he's saying is, this is it's a short moment that we're resting in the Atman, or the true self. And the object of perception or indulgence, it's the object of perception or indulgence does not cause the pleasure. You say, like, you get tempted to think that I got that car, I got that necklace, and that's what gave me the happiness. And that seems like it's logical, because you weren't happy, and then you got it, and then you were happy, so it must be the necklace. It should be the necklace, but they say, no, that's not the cause of the pleasure. That it is the temporary revelation of the bliss of the true self, or Atman, which is usually covered up by restless thoughts and desires. So generally we have restless thoughts and desires consciousness, and then we're freed from that for a moment. Okay, and then it kind of comes back in again pretty quick. I mean, if you have a triple chocolate cheesecake, a bite of it, and then the world disappears for a moment. Your eyes close, and whatever somebody's saying to you, you can't hear it. Or you go, let's say you go to the ocean and the sunset is there, and the golden sunset, and by surprise you come around the bend and there it is, and you just have to stop the car, and now everything stops and you're in bliss. Okay. And was it the ocean that caused it, or no? Because can you be at the ocean and at the sunset and not be happy?
Yeah.
When your mind is busy and active and pushing and stressed, right? You can be at the ocean and still, it might not be enough. So they call it a musk deer. Apparently there's a deer, and the musk deer searches the forest to find the source of a fragrant scent, because it smells a fragrant scent and it's trying to find it out, not realizing that the source is in its own navel. So this deer has a scent that emits from its navel, and the deer doesn't know it, and is searching the forest to find this. And so this is our case, this Atman. It's like we're looking outside trying to get the next happiness out of the next situation or next object, and not realizing it's within us. So Vedanta teaches us to rest in our true nature, free from desire and attachment, even while performing our duties in life. So it's not like we're just going to sit there and, okay, I'm going to, Atman, okay. Oh yeah, I got it. And then you'd be all day like that? You can't do that either, right? So that's the progression into how it can be practiced and then kept in our daily life. So I'm moving into this kind of a practice section I created here. How can we develop the habit of resting in our true nature? Yeah, we have to develop a habit, right? The senses have been created with a natural tendency to flow out towards the objective universe. Yeah, it came in with it. It's automatic. Senses are going out, okay? And he said, a rare hero, however, desirous of perceiving the inner Atman, turns their gaze within. They draw the rays of the mind, they withdraw the rays of the mind, and the senses are drawn in as the limbs of a tortoise are drawn into the shell. The mental modifications are stopped. The buddhi, the intellect, is made to surrender itself at the feet of the Atman, and the ego is emptied, so that the entire being might be filled by the light of the self. There's the E word, ego. Ego. Ego is emptied so that the entire being might be filled by the light of the self. Various types of meditation have been developed for this exact purpose. Swami Shivananda gives great emphasis to meditation on Om. He taught, chant Om from the very bottom of your heart with profound feeling. When chanting Om, feel that it gushes forth from every part of your body. The sound should start from the navel and end at the crown of the head. The mysterious vibrations produced by the chanting of Om will shut out all worldly thoughts, destroy tossing of mind, and produce one-pointedness of mind, and make the mind in tune with the infinite. So this is chanting of Om. It's not the same as getting the thing that clears your mind for a minute and then it disappears. It becomes a practice. If you practice regularly chanting Om and getting established in the Atman through this practice of chanting Om, you can develop a habit of resting in your true nature. Then when you have a habit, then you don't have to be actively doing it all the time for it to be with you, You can just be resting in your true nature. So, let's see here. So this is a easier said than done kind of a path, because here we have this life and we're used to seeking after getting things and accomplishing something and then feeling good about it and then starting something else and work hard. And what percentage of the time we get the fulfillment and satisfaction, a very small percentage. But the thing is, we have a habit of living our life that way, and so to shift gears, we all know that New Year's resolutions, in a clear moment, you decide to do something differently, and you're totally committed. And I'm glad I decided that. Now that's over. Okay, I can give away all my bigger clothes, and I can just, I'm going to be different now. But then what happens in a week or two, then, just like a habit, we fall back in. So they recognize that, and in the Hindu scripture, the Vedanta scriptures, there's what they call them, it's kind of like prerequisites, but I'll call them preparations. So preparations for practicing this to find success in this, if you're convinced of it, and you really want to go for it and take advantage of it, then we must prepare ourselves with the 4 means of salvation, is what they call it, 4 means of salvation. And there are, first one is viveka, and viveka is like a discrimination between the real and the unreal, which seems like an odd thing to be focusing on. I mean, the real, I know the real, what seeing is believing, what's real is what I see is real. Or you go on a spiritual retreat for a week and everybody's in the bliss and nodding their heads and agreeing with everything, and then, and then after 10 days you're going to go home again and everybody's like, oh, now I got to go back to the real world. Right? It's like this oasis of seeming bliss and peace. It seems like that's just an illusion, and now I'm going to go back to the real world. And the thing is, it's kind of backwards. That's like this viveka, to discriminate between the real and the unreal, is viveka. It's the first of the four means of salvation. So you're on a road. There's childhood, adolescence, and middle age and old age for this physical body. But there is an unchanging background for this ever-changing body and mind, like the blackboard in a classroom or the screen in a cinema, on which are manifested various forms and figures. So you have this, like the blackboard is just there all the time, no matter what's on the blackboard, and you erase it and you change it and everything changes, but there's a consistent thing there at the blackboard or the movie screen at the theater. The witness or the silent spectator of these changes of the body and mind is permanent and unchanging. So we were a little person, and then we were a middle-sized person and a big person, and the mind is even changing a lot, right? But there's still just the same, there's something consistent throughout, from the baby to the old person. There's something that's consistent in the background of all that. There's a substratum, you're saying, like there's a witness. And this witness pervades, permeates, and interpenetrates all these changing forms like a thread in a garland of flowers. The eternal essence, or Atman, is present everywhere and in everything. It dwells in the chambers of your own heart. And it is the soul of this tree, flower, stone, goat, dog, cat, and saint. It is the very source of life and thought. The aspirant should learn to discriminate between this eternal and unchanging substratum of all objects and the ever-changing names and forms. That was the real and the unreal. One should seriously engage oneself at all times to separate the eternal, unchanging self from these names and forms. Should try to separate oneself from the changing, impermanent 5 sheaths. It's like the body, mind, etc. They have 5 designations for this vehicle that we're in. And also distinguish the unchanging self from the passions, emotions, feelings, thoughts, and sentiments, and from the oscillating mind itself. So the mind itself is something we're a witness of. You can see your mind. My mind was restless. My mind is peaceful. My mind, and you can see, you take a look, snapshot. You can see your mind. So you're not the mind, you're a witness. One should distinguish between the mind and the witness who moves and illumines the mind, between ordinary sensation, feelings and sentiments, and perfect awareness of pure consciousness. Well, you've got to distinguish the difference between ordinary sensation, feelings, and sentiments, and perfect awareness of pure consciousness, which remains unaffected and unattached. So that's our first of the 4 means of salvation. I'm not going in as deep as the other 3. I'll cover them here quickly. The second is vairagya. That's the dispassion or indifference to sensual enjoyments herein and hereafter. That means like you were indifferent even to heaven, kind of thoughts of I'll be happy in heaven kind of thing, let go. So with vairagya, the mind stops chasing after sensual objects in pursuit of happiness. So I talked about the, thinking we're going to get happiness from that thing. And now this is like, okay, let go of that, be detached from the thing. It's like an indifference to sensual enjoyments because we're aiming to rest in our true nature, which doesn't require that thing. And as long as you're trying to chant Om, but you're thinking about the triple chocolate cheesecake, then your mind is agitated and it's covering up that inner peace that's there, right beneath everything. So the third of the four means of salvation is the six virtues. In a nutshell, it's Shama is peace of mind through eradication of vasanas. That's like the desires. Eradicate the thinking that you're going to get fulfillment out of some situation or thing. Then Dhamma, the control of the sense organs. So instead of letting the sense organs control us, like you see it and you want it, or you hear it and you want it, or you taste it and you want it, and then your mind is all agitated. You sit to chant Om, and now your senses are distracting you. Somebody's cooking in the other room, and so now you can't. And so your mind goes there, and you lost your meditation. So it's then Uparati is a satiety. So there's like a lack of urging to feel like you need something to be happy. You're satisfied, however things are, and you still do what you need to do, but you're not like hoping and waiting for something to be happy. Then there's titiksha, is forbearance. It means when fine. So the thing about forbearance means then there's negative things that are happening, and your mind gets ruffled. And now your Atman has disappeared again because you got negative things, problems. Just turn on the radio, problems. And so this titiksha's forbearance is being able to stay equal-minded in the midst of all that. And then Shraddha is faith. So if you don't have faith in the scriptures and the teachings, then you won't be having fortitude to go forward and take the difficult steps. And then samadhana is the concentration of mind takes to pursue these things. So you have to have this concentration, don't be distracted all the time. So in daily life, you can attain the highest nirvikalpa samadhi state, wherein you will find and feel all indeed is Brahman. There is nothing but the self. You'll have to practice inquiry, reflection, and meditation again and again. You must feel the presence in all names and forms, always and everywhere, in everything. This is cosmic identification. This practice will give the bliss of oneness, the ananda of allness. It is a sublime soul-stirring experience that cannot be either imagined or described in words. So you just got Vedanta in a nutshell. It's more like a pistachio shell. Watch it now, 423, okay. Well, we now come to the Christian mysticism philosophy, where Evelyn Underhill, who wrote a book called Mysticism, it's like the magnum opus, it's like the 363-page book. She studied all traditions and mysticism, and she wrote a book, put it all together, and she boiled it down. She said that mysticism is the art of union with reality. The art of union with reality. So what did Shivananda call it? I called Vedanta. He called Vedanta
Science.
The science of the reality. I just discovered that today, that they both had such similar names for these things. And in mysticism, there's something, you come across the word recollection, and it's a big theme in this mysticism of recollection. And wherever I found somebody giving a short definition of it, I keep it on my phone in a little note. And there's a few of those say that recollection is it's recollection of the presence of God. It's the spiritual retreat of the heart. It's walking in the presence of God. So it's not just sitting there quietly recollecting, but walking in the presence of God. The heart remains clinging to God. The will is one with the will of God. Only the act of recollection, the constantly renewed retreat to the quiet center of the spirit, gives that assurance of a reality, a calmer and more valid life attainable by us. Does this remind you of Vedanta? Did I say that too fast?
What did you say, sorry? A calmer and what?
I'm going to read it again. Only the act of recollection, the constantly renewed retreat to the quiet center of the spirit, gives that assurance of a reality, a calmer and more valid life attainable by us. A few of the most famous Christian mystics include Meister Eckhart, Saint Teresa of Avila, Saint Augustine, Brother Lawrence, Saint Albert the Great, and Madame Guyon. You can find, and I actually, in my big research and finding people reading excerpts from books by these authors or these people, I found a wonderful YouTube channel where the lady has just a peaceful Australian accent voice, and she reads excerpts with music and gives nice space between the words. And I made a playlist of my own. I checked, she has like 700 on her channel, but I have my favorites list, and it's not all Christian or all Hindu, it's both, and it's I get like 25 or 30 in there. If anybody wants me to share a link to that playlist for listening, give me your email address. But I'll read some Meister Eckhart, and may have to save a lot of this for another time-wise, or I can also send copies of what I collected here. But he was in the 1200s, and he was daring enough to speak of God beyond God, of a divine birth that occurs not in a manger of straw, but in the deepest chamber of the human soul. For him, the God most people adore, the God of attributes, of names, of all images our minds can summon, is not yet the final reality. Beyond this God, there is Gottheit, the Godhead. In his sermons, he would speak of this ground in which God and the soul are not merely in union, but one, as flame and light are one. Yet he was no destroyer of devotion. He did not reject prayer, the sacraments, or the venerable images of the faith. Rather, he invited those who loved God in these forms to be drawn beyond them, as a lover is drawn past words to the stillness where love itself dwells. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, you have words, you can have great poetry, poetic love poem. All right, then beyond that, coming to just the stillness of love, there's no, or just where love dwells. In his numerous sermons, he invited his listeners to go beneath all forms into that unconditioned reality where God is known not as an idea or even as a loving creator, but as the very ground of our own being. The first God we can speak about, the second we can only meet in silence. To reach this ground, Eckhart taught, we must let go of every image, every concept, every possession of the soul. Not because these are evil, but because they are finite. The ground is infinite, and the finite cannot contain it. As long as we cling to an idea of God, even the loftiest idea, we have not yet arrived at the Godhead. It is in the stripping away, the letting it go, the radical detachment, that we find ourselves in the place where God is simply God, and we are simply ourselves, and these two are not apart. So as the detachment came in, again, see, remember the four means and the Vairagya, detachment was there, detachment acknowledged here. And he says more about detachment was not for him a cold withdrawal from life, but the freeing of the heart from every clinging so that God's will might flow through it unimpeded. The spark of the soul was that inmost point untouched by time or sin where God's light always burns. To live from this point was to live in freedom, because here the soul was no longer bound by the ebb and flow of fortune. So it's, the tiksha, the forbearance, all those virtues that are required, it seems like it's coming into this teaching here. Also, letting go, and because here the soul is no longer bound by the ebb and flow of fortune, the rise and fall of moods, the constant play of gain and loss. Here the soul stood in God as God stood in the soul. The implications of this teaching were immense. It meant that union with God was not a rare privilege granted only to a few saints after years of ascetic labor. It was the birthright of every soul, already present at the deepest level. What was needed was not to climb to heaven, but to sink into the ground, to awaken to what is already true. This awakening could happen in the cloister, in the fields, in the noise of the market, or in the stillness of prayer. It depended not on where the body was, but where the heart rested. For Meister Eckhart, the journey into God's life is not complete until the will itself is transformed. It is one thing to glimpse the divine ground in moments of stillness, to sense the spark of God at the soul's center. It is another to live in such a way that every movement of the heart, every decision and action flows effortlessly from God's own will. In his teaching, the harmony between God's will and the soul's will was not merely moral obedience or dutiful submission. It was the very sign that the soul had entered the freedom of divine union. Eckhart's listeners were familiar with the language of doing God's will. It was a staple of Christian teaching to pray as Christ prayed in Gethsemane, "Not my will, but yours be done." But too often this was heard as a command to suppress one's own desires, to yield begrudgingly as a servant might obey a master he fears. Eckhart offered a deeper vision. He spoke of a state in which the soul's will and God's will are so perfectly aligned that there is no longer even the thought of tension between them. The soul wills what God wills, and God wills what the soul wills. Not because the soul has no will, but because it has been brought into the spaciousness of God's own freedom. For many in the spiritual life, action and contemplation are seen as separate paths. There are those called to prayer, silence, and study, monks in a cloister, hermits in their cells, and there are those called to serve, to labor in the world, to meet the needs of others. In the medieval imagination, the life of Mary of Bethany, sitting at the feet of Jesus, was often contrasted with the life of Martha, busy with many tasks. But Meister Eckhart refused to keep these realms apart. In his vision, the highest life is one in which action and contemplation are not two stages to be balanced, but one seamless reality. He would point to the example of Christ himself, who withdrew to pray in solitude, yet also walked among the crowds, healing, teaching, and feeding. The unity of Christ's life was not a matter of alternating between the two modes, but of living from the same divine ground in both. For Eckhart, this was the goal of the spiritual path, to be so united with God in the depths of the soul that every act, whether inward or outward, flows from the same center. So we got through Meister Eckhart. There is more from St. Teresa.
I can always guarantee that with Sahadev. You know,
Yeah.
say 20 minutes, we got 35,
Yeah,
and then
well,
he's got a ton more to share.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you.